I run across a lot of different people doing this show, and it's really cool to learn all sorts of different perspectives. Here is one I haven't heard yet before, and this is Nelson Gilliat. He wrote the book called The Death of the SDR and the Birth of the Buyer Centric Revenue Model. He has some really unique perspectives on how sales should be shifting. Take a listen to this. I think you might find it interesting.
Welcome to SaaS-Story in the Making, the podcast that features the people who made the software world what it is today and the leaders who are shaping the future of technology. Here's your host, Matt Wallach.
Yes, that's right. I am Matt, and you are listening to SaaS-Story in the Making. Thank you so much for coming. Really excited to have you here. And I'm extremely delighted to be joined by my special guest, Nelson Gilliat. Nelson, how you doing?
Hey, Matt. Good. Hey, everyone. Good to be with you.
Oh, super awesome to have you here, Nelson. And I want to make sure that everybody knows who you are. So let me give a little introduction to the world of Nelson here. Nelson, he's the author of The Death of the SDR and the Birth of the Buyer Centric Revenue. I am so excited to hear about this. It's really a way to liberate marketers and sellers from the outdated and harmful predictable revenue model, which with prospecting SDRs and sales assembly line, and also talking about, how you can get better commission and quota. He's also the CEO of Buyer Centric Revenue. It's a B2B marketing and sales consultancy and advisory firm. And he previously wore many socks across B2B marketing and sales, with being an SDR, an AE, a CSM, sales enablement, product marketing, content marketing, and demand gen. I love that. Wore many socks instead of wear many hats. It's a very different take on it for sure.
But marketers, we love messaging.
So true. And really, when it comes to sales and marketing, Nelson knows his stuff. So once again, Nelson, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Matt. That was a wonderful intro. I know it was quite a mouthful, but you did a terrific job. I feel like I was Daenerys Targaryen in Game of Thrones, when they have like the 3-minute intro to introduce her, So
yes, Mother of Dragons, absolutely.
yeah. So it's going to be a great conversation today. We'll unpack a lot of what Matt just kind of broke down. Super excited.
Me too. Let's jump in. I want to know what's going on with you lately and what's coming up for you.
Yeah. So, I published the book about a month ago, again, The Death of the SDR and the Birth of Buyer Centric Revenue. Sorry for the long title, everyone. I tried to keep it short. And so I'm kind of promoting that, kind of doing the book tour thing, and I mean, that's through podcasts and promoting it on LinkedIn. So I'm posting a lot, trying to kind of spread these ideas, get people engaging with it, discussing. I think these are, really key issues within B2B marketing and sales, and particularly in sales, some problems that I've seen. So some things I really like to fix and seem like a lot of people also want to fix. So I'm just hoping that, together we can make some really good progress and help to elevate sales.
That's amazing. I love the idea of elevating sales. I think that too many people have kind of a negative connotation with sales and salespeople, and we really need to change that. That's something I work on with my clients, is to make sure, you're not really selling, you're helping. And if you help the right people, you sell your product, and that's kind of how it works. But I really want to understand from you, what is buyer-centric revenue? When you talk about that, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So, I created this new model, right? Buyer-centric revenue model, to hopefully point people in a better direction than the existing B2B marketing and sales model called the predictable revenue model, that pretty much everyone runs to some extent. And that's been around more or less for 20, 25 years. It was around unofficially, and then it was popularized and officialized by Aaron Ross in 2011. What I mean by buyer-centric marketing and sales is that we need to market and sell the way buyers want to be and can be marketed and sold to. And I think that means we'll be more successful as marketers and sellers. Companies will be more successful and grow better. We're not at odds. We're not set up for failure in our marketing and sales hats that we put on. We often use the dating analogy in marketing sales. It's so overused, but it's so good, right? But it's like, you're trying to woo the other person. You don't want to put them off. You don't want to annoy them. You kind of want to put yourself in their shoes and say, hey, like, how would they want to be wooed? And so I think that's what it is. Like, we need to, everyone kind of maybe talks a little about being buyer centric. Not many people actually walk that walk, but to me, it's a principle in business. And, the only question is, well, how do I apply that principle to my audience? How do I apply that within my own business? Whether it's software or services or both, in technology or in medical, whatever. However expensive my product is, it doesn't matter. It's like, be buyer friendly, be buyer centric, and I think that's why I named it so. And I think the predictable revenue model, as it stands currently, with current buyer preferences and current technology and how buyers want to be marketed and sold to, they just don't line up. And so I'm hoping the buyer centric revenue model presents a better approach to that.
What I want to hear about what spurred this on. When did you realize, hey, we need to shift. There needs to be a change. What led you to start this buyer centric revenue model?
Yeah, for sure. So, as you mentioned, I've worn many socks, right, in marketing and sales and B2B, and I just kept running across these problems in my role. And I was trying to figure out, well, what is the ideal, what is the ideal marketing and sales model? What's the ideal go-to-market model? And I was trying looking around at what other companies doing, what my current company was doing, and then, basically I went from a company, a fairly big company that was running the predictable revenue model, to then a very small startup that wasn't running it, and had to build things up from the ground floor and had to innovate and had a really good marketing engine. And then that kind of opened up my eyes as to sort of like what could be possible. And I started to my wheels were turning, because I was like, I want to, at this very small startup, come up with the ideal marketing and sales model. What's the ideal way to kind of go to market? And then also I just sort of observed problems within the sales profession. I think certain practices that have been around for a while that contribute to the negative stereotype, and that sales is sort of sleazy, it's undesirable, it's kind of it's not a great profession to be in. And I think that there are legitimate practices that make that true, and we should be working on really moving away from that. And professionalizing the sales role. And so I've worn that sales hat. I've kind of lived through those practices, and it took me a while to understand why they were bad. It took me a lot of thinking, kind of unraveling the onion to unpack all the smoke and mirrors that kind of shroud them, and understand the arguments for and against them, and really debunk them. And so I go through a lot of effort in the book to kind of do that. I think sellers more than marketers are kind of harmed today by a lot of practices. Marketers are fighting their own battles, and I'm trying to help with that. But I'm also really trying to help sellers out.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So, are you able to share with us an example? Like, what's one thing that, like you said, sellers are harmed by, and what are they doing that's hurting them, and what could they be doing better?
Yeah, and I think there's 4 key things that are harming sellers, or rather 3, but hey, let's go with 4. So the first one is prospecting, and prospecting I consider is sort of code word for manual marketing, that buyers really don't like, and that the people doing the prospecting really don't like, and isn't very efficient or effective, and was kind of a remnant from the old days when marketing wasn't really able to properly woo buyers and connect them with sellers. And that's when eventually predictable revenue came along and said, hey, salespeople shouldn't be doing prospecting. Let's create this new role called the SDR to do prospecting full time and take that off sales' plate, because sales should be doing sales. They shouldn't be doing this sort of, bad manual marketing, which is basically what prospecting is essentially telemarketing email spam and LinkedIn spam. It's sending, kind of intrusive outreach to buyers who don't want that. You can try to make it as least annoying as possible, or try to be funny and this and that. But buyers aren't biting on that. That's not how they want to be marketed to today. In any case, sellers are still doing that to some extent today, even if they have SDRs around. And I think that's something that it's drudgery. It's a really undesirable aspect of the role. And it really sucks for aspiring sellers because they have to do that full time through the SDR role. And so unfortunately, the SDR role was made a required stepping stone to go into sales. So anyone who wants to do that has to kind of do that full time. And it's so awful. I think it puts a lot of people off to sales. People don't ever make it to sales in the first place. SDRs are really suffering and can't wait to escape it. You see low tenure, you see high turnover, low productivity, low performance, low job satisfaction. Not many.
Well, one of the things with that also, with SDRs making it a stepping stone is, I have found, and I've run sales teams for a while, I've found that skill set is different than somebody who's a closer. The prospecting skill set is a different skill set than a closer. And so if maybe somebody has the right kind of skill set and understanding and makeup to be able to be a really good AE/closer, but they don't have that prospecting, if you make them go through the first one when that's not the right fit for them, it could be a bad thing. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah. And there's stats. I think Pavilion came out with like 22% of SDRs turned AEs actually perform.
Wow.
And, the reason for that being is that the SDR role to do kind of this bad manual marketing has nothing to do with sales. Prospecting is not sales. It's bad manual marketing to generate or try to generate demand for sales, to set appointments for sales. It's not setting up SDRs for success in their own role, because a lot of them are failing and are miserable. And it's not going to help people get into, performance sales. I think if people want to set up sellers for success, then you just hire sellers and you train them right and you coach them right and you let them do actual sales. You let them, and we'll talk about the next problem that I think is, because it's related to sales. So I think prospecting is the first big thing. And I think that the solution to that is just proper marketing, which I go in depth in my book about. Like, it's marketing's job to generate demand for sales. And, there's so many ways that they can do that are buyer friendly, and basically get people to submit a demo request on the website and then automatically connect them with sellers. And sellers can then do their actual job, which they want to do, which is, build relationships with people and help buyers to evaluate, to purchase more, to renew, etc. Help them be successful and have a portfolio, a book of business. And that's really satisfying to sellers and very rewarding. And, that's why you get into sales. You're a people person. You're not, you don't want to go around chasing annoying people to speak to you. You want people who want to speak to you and want your help to make this decision, understand how it works, and then ultimately to be successful and things like that. And so I think the other big problem that sellers, well, before I kind of go on to the next problem, is anything, Matt, you wanted to jump in there on prospecting or any other bits and pieces, or should we?
Yeah, so I want to dive in here, and I definitely could see having a panel with you and a couple others, and I bet there'd be some amazing debates back and forth based on your knowledge and experience. But I want to understand, are you advocating and saying that we should do away with outbound or just be better at it? What is your thought there?
Yeah, and so I propose to slowly sunset SDRs and prospecting in favor of proper marketing exclusively. And so what I argue, or what I propose in my book, is that people compare the two models, test, and slowly transition. And so the sort of 5 steps to do that is, first, look into your own CRM. Look at the leads generated by prospecting versus a lead generated by marketing. In other words, a demo request for marketing versus prospecting leads from telemarketing, emails, LinkedIn, whatever. And then look at the metrics such as revenue, opportunities, cost per opportunities, conversion rates, sales cycle, average selling price, cost per acquisition payback period. And when you look at that and you separate that, it's very clear which is the one you should be investing in, which marketing method is superior and efficient, effective, and ROI positive. In addition to that, you'd also have to factor in how much resources you're pouring into prospecting versus proper marketing. And it's not always 50-50. Some companies just do prospecting and they don't have proper marketing in a lot of companies, there's a mixture of both. And so you need to take that into account. Another thing you need to take into account is that prospecting is extremely resource intensive. It's time, capital, labor intensive, which is one reason why many people outsource it, which doesn't make it good. I think it just makes it slightly less awful. And so I think bearing that in mind, and also bearing in mind that prospecting turns off a lot of buyers, and that doesn't often show up in your CRM. So your CRM might show 100 calls were made, one person took a meeting, that one person never bought, but then there's also the 10 people that got really annoyed and said, take me off your list, and unsubscribe and things like that, and damage the brand. And so to me, I see it as like, if you go back to the dating analogy and you're just kind of like out there trying to woo your significant other, and you're just kind of being this annoying person at the bar, you might get one person's number, but you're going to turn off a whole bunch of other people and turn off people to your brand and your reputation. So I think there's a lot of hidden costs that people need to understand when they do that. The second step of that process is, once you've kind of gotten that data and seen the performance of both, the efficacy of both, I propose two experiments. The first one is on the inbound side, to automate demo qualification scheduling right on the website, which marketing can easily do, and there's the tech to enable that. Give SDRs quota relief during that time, and run this test for a couple of sales cycles so you can track those metrics we talked about before to revenue. And then once you've proven that, and then also during that, have the SDRs repurposed to more productive and fulfilling marketing tasks, which they'd be happy to do, whether it's content marketing, demand gen, social media, market research, product marketing, customer interviews, win-loss interviews, whatnot. They'd be thrilled to do that. And then, so it's a win for everyone. And then once you've kind of proven that, you fully transition. The second experiment is on the outbound prospecting activity side. So I recommend reducing that by 15%, or anywhere between 15 and 25%. And then again, repurposing the SDRs to other marketing activities and reinvesting those resources into proper marketing, and giving the SDRs further quota relief. And so, whatever you're paying them, their OTE or whatnot, and then observing those metrics again and comparing the results. And then if successful, continue to double down and slowly reduce prospecting activities. So if you had 50 telemarketing calls at the outset, maybe you switch that to 30. And then the next go around after, let's say, a sales cycle or two, you do 15, and so on and so forth. And so you're slowly kind of testing this, as you then also try to pursue proper marketing. And then what I consider proper marketing, just so people kind of understand that, because I think a lot of people, especially me, when I was doing prospecting, didn't quite understand marketing. And so I couldn't imagine there was another different way to woo buyers in the door other than telemarketing, email spam, and LinkedIn spam, or whatever. And so basically, proper marketing today, or good marketing, look towards demand gen. So demand gen is essentially right now competing with the SDRs or prospecting to generate demand. And within demand gen, there's so much that you can do. So essentially the way that, or the tactics that work today is really good and entertaining content, distributed effectively over social media, and your email list, or YouTube, or LinkedIn. And that's, and you can even, it's organic content, and it's also paid content. So you can do ads on Facebook and LinkedIn. That's how I heard about you, Matt, right? We were talking about pre-show. I saw an ad on Facebook with you offering, your services to help, startups and companies grow with proper sales. And so There's, and I think all marketing is outbound, by the way. And so all these things are outbound, doing live events, summits, panels, inviting, folks to come on the podcast, having a podcast, and, all these things are outbound. All marketing is outbound, but these things are buyer friendly, they're scalable, they have compounding yield, they respect the way that buyers want to be marketed to. And there's just so much you can do: influencer marketing, partner marketing. You're building a community, LinkedIn organic, and thought leadership, and word of mouth. And it's respecting how a lot of buyers are buying through word of mouth and asking their peers. And so, being involved in, on social media, being involved in communities, kind of being a thought leader and having events and being a place where your audience can congregate and engage with you and consume your content, and then you consume with theirs and whatnot. Remarketing to previous buyers and users that change jobs, low-hanging fruit, previous customers. Now marketing can automate that. There's in-app promotions or in-product promotions. So working with the product team to basically market people inside the software or the product itself. And I'm just barely scratching the surface, but I'm trying to kind of show all these different things. And in addition to that, we obviously see that there's buyer self-service to some extent. So to the extent desired and possible, you're enabling buyers to kind of go through the whole journey with sales' help, or sometimes without sales' help. And so it's basically, putting everything on the website, putting the pricing there, putting the FAQ there, putting the demo there, demo environment, doing all these things, so that the buyer can kind of do their thing. And if they need sales' help, they can get sales' help, and then sales can help those folks. So that's just, I'm barely kind of scratching the surface. I can go on all day about proper marketing, but these are things that a lot of people are unfamiliar with, especially in sales. Mm-hmm. A lot of sales don't know what goes on in marketing. A lot of marketers don't know what goes on in sales. I have no idea what goes on in HR. HR often jokes that people often think it's hiring and firing, and it's true. No, I'm kidding. But it's like, so I think that's part of the mystique about why prospecting still goes on a little bit. And not every company has proper marketing. Not every company has proper demand gen. But I think a lot of demand gen marketers are trying to basically liberate themselves from having to compete against prospecting and want to just do proper marketing. And so there's a lot of, if any people are listening, you probably are listening to your demand gen comrades complain and moan and try to fight against it. And anyway, so I know I've kind of gone on there. The other part that I thought would be interesting to the audience, if you want to go on to this, Matt, is sort of what I call the sales assembly line and the sales role itself. But I just wanted to throw it back to you and see if there's anything you wanted to touch upon that we just went over.
Yeah, I mean, I find your thoughts fascinating. I haven't heard anybody voice this kind of stuff yet, so it's super interesting for me. I always love seeing new viewpoints and perspectives. But what I want to know, and we have a lot of software founders and early stage startups getting or listening to the show, and they're just getting started. A lot of them don't have marketing teams. They don't even have SDRs. It's them getting out there, doing the grunt work. They don't have the years of experience to build up a content engine. Is what you're advocating shifting away from outbound and going towards proper marketing? Is that for more companies who are established and already in their growth curve? Can it work for startups, or do startups have a different way?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Matt. And basically, again, I consider all marketing outbound. And so I know it's a confusing terminology, but the smaller of a company you are, the less resources you have, the more harmful that I think prospecting in the predictable revenue model is, because essentially you have less resources, time, capital, and labor to, I think, deploy less productively, let's say. And so if you're a small company, if you're a founder, obviously you're doing, product, you're doing marketing, and you're doing sales within the constraints of your budget and your time. And so, you're trying to figure out go-to-market fit. I think the way to market properly, even under a shoestring budget, I would say in B2B, it's LinkedIn organic. It's posting every day. It's in commenting. It's building your following, building your audience, building your narrative. And that's, you're engaging with your buyers constantly. So you kind of know, like, you're getting to know your buyers and what's going on in their world. And, you're putting out your narrative there, right? And that's free. I mean, LinkedIn's free, so you got to put the time in, but it has compounding yield as you build your connections, you build your followers. In addition to that, there's guest podcasting. You just go up and hit up the people that you want to be on their podcast. So if you're selling to sales enablement, get on sales enablement podcasts. You're selling to marketers, get on marketing podcasts and build your brand there. Great. You get a lot of content through that. And then you can create your own podcast on the cheap. It's like so cheap nowadays. And then, and so, yeah. And, you don't need to have so much you don't need to have like Steven Spielberg production quality. That would be pretty sweet. But, once you get
you can have
Series
garbage
A,
production quality like we have.
Yeah. Once you get Series A funding, that's when you go Steven Spielberg. But anyway, create your own podcast, invite influencers, like the people you kind of want to get, that's your influencer marketing. People who already have a big audience, and you ask them questions that you want to ask. So again, more product marketing, more like, hey, I can ask people whatever questions I want that are kind of interesting to me, or make good content. Great, there's more content, and then you put that and you distribute that on social media. You put that on LinkedIn. You chop it up and you put that on LinkedIn. You put it on YouTube. And so that's how you get out there and put your name out there, and you're not spending a dime in ads or anything like that. It's, you got to put the time in, but it has compounding yield, and there's just so much benefits that you get out of that. Obviously, you're hitting up your network, you're hitting up friends and family, you can message people, I think, thoughtfully, that when you have a relationship, you can send them an email, but you have a prior relationship, so that's okay. But if you don't know someone, I think the best way to kind of engage them is either try to be a guest in their podcast, or invite them to your podcast, or collaborate in some sort of content, or put on a live event. So I also think live event strategy is great. So it's just like same reason for the podcast. You got Zoom, you can, basically invite people to have a meeting and just to talk about a subject, and just to be like a panelist, or just to be like and then have live audience Q&A. So you get engagement from people and say, hey, come on and ask us any questions you got about this or that. And that could be kind of like a reoccurring thing. And so, you got a weekly reoccurring live micro event, which is a great source of content and audience engagement. And so there you go. And again, you still haven't done any ads now. And so I would say, once as a founder, you kind of are able to delegate your marketing and have funds to bring on a marketer, your first marketing hire should be a marketing person that can basically do the strategy, to help with the positioning and the messaging and the targeting, and the promotion, the demand gen bit. So you kind of want like a generalist that can do the strategy and the execution together and across, essentially both product marketing and demand gen, those two functions. And that is going to be someone that will hopefully turn into your leader. You need them to wear many hats, and hopefully this person ends up going on to lead the marketing org, or at least finds people to take over.
That'd be ideal. Yep.
Yeah. And like hand off the baton to someone else, maybe, if they don't want to stick around. But, eventually that person will delegate stuff to other people, or they'll hire agencies. So it's like, if you're still limited for resources, oftentimes you can't bring in full-time employees to help with some of the marketing execution. So you'll bring on agencies, to come help with some of that stuff. But again, as a founder, especially if you're going to be the face of the brand, it's really powerful nowadays when the CEO is the face of the brand. They're the ones that are most passionate. They're the ones that know their market the best. They're the ones that know their buyers the best. They should be still, I think, out there and being that face. The marketer can support them with logistics and whatever and whatnot, but I don't think founders should step away or should shy away from the limelight. You learn so much from being out there, and it's so impactful for marketing. So that's what I would advise.
I would agree. I think that's good. And unfortunately, we've reached our time. This has been really interesting. I love hearing your perspective on all of this, Nelson. But how can our audience learn more about you and your new book that you brought out?
Yeah, for sure. And thanks, Matt. Thanks, everyone, for listening. I would say hopefully we have a round 2 of this, because I would love to cover the sales assembly line, commission, and quota that I think all three are very harmful and very harmful to sellers. And I would really like people to start talking about that and exploring that, because, I think it's really contributing to those stereotypes and, people's unhappiness in sales. So we'll have to cover that next time. But in any case, if people want to get in touch with me or follow me, I'm active on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot a connection, follow me, check out the content I put out there. I'm obviously helping companies sort of evaluate and adopt and transition to the Buyer Centric Revenue model as part of Buyer Centric Revenue LLC. So people need some help with that. We can chat about that too. And my email is nelson@buyercentricrevenue.com.
Perfect. And we'll put all that in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, you'll see it down in the description. But Nelson, this is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Matt, thanks for having me. All the best. See you.
Absolutely. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Thanks for listening. Make sure you are subscribed. That way you're not going to miss any more really cool thoughts and ideas brought out by awesome innovators like Nelson. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and then we will see you next time. Take care.